the Gregory to our era of artists, it wasn't done correctly, or we never accepted it correctly. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And then worse, the transition now from us to the generation or the youth and below us, beneath us, are coming up also. I don't think that is definitely not being made correctly. So I'm not sure if we can really put the blame on any one specific group, but the whole system wasn't handled properly.
Well, thank you for bringing that to my attention because I never did look at it that way. That we are. I for one, I criticize a lot of the young artists, and where I find it where I find it relevant, I also compliment them. And I'm kind of disappointed with the direction that the music is heading. But sometimes it's easy to point outward and not point inward and say, we were primarily responsible. So I never thought about it
We
falling
were
down.
there. We were there at the time when it was happening. We were there. There was a lapse. In other words, our artists or our age group artists, for the most part, are people like Bounty, Beanie, producer-wise, it's people like Dave and Tony, Jeremy Hardin, as far as
John
DJs
John.
is Bujo, so
Yeah.
basically that was a whole era as well, so if the problem lie in the transition, and that is an era that we still hold to some extent in high regard,
Right.
it had its problem, but really, we got the benefit of the Steely and the Sly and the work that they put in a little before us. From the 80s,
Right.
we were the 90s youth them. We were basically the 90s youth, late 80s, early 90s youth them. Steely and Sly and them, and there was the late 70s, 80s youth them. So basically, the ball dropped somewhere in the 2000.
Yeah.
So we have a whole responsibility
Stability.
on some levels for that too.
Okay, I never thought of it. I have to think about that one some more and come back with some discussion on that. I never looked at it that way, but
Yeah, we
it
got
do-
the
it
ball.
does it does actually make a lot of sense, and that is something I think we will have to address at a later date. Um, the thing is, when the day that Gregory died, we saw him on Twitter trending worldwide, not just locally or
Mm-hmm.
regionally. We
Mm-hmm.
saw him trending in the top five for the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
And just how you feel about that versus if it was someone more recent
I
had
mean,
passed on.
I don't think there's anybody more recent, or I shouldn't say that. Meaning, there are legends, people who are still alive now, who are legends, who would definitely have that impact as far as how we look at people speaking of it on the internet. I think if Jimmy Cliff, God forbid, passed, it would be as significant, if not more significant, worldwide,
Right,
if Jimmy Cliff passed.
right.
But
Well,
to
let's not
say
call
for
that down on
artists,
Jimmy.
yeah, no, I call it don't punch Jimmy. God, we need him. We need him for
Yeah.
another 20 years and another thing at least. But the fact is that if I believe, I don't know if there's any Jamaican artist under say 30 right now, or 35, I'd go as far as to say, who really would have that type of impact globally, an outpouring of love and respect right now that exists. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to predict what would happen if somebody passed or so. And myself and some other people within the business been talking about it. Say, why? So who would train? And who would have that type of impact, like Gregory or whatever? And somebody said, well, Bujo trended the day for him case for a couple, for maybe 20 minutes an hour.
Right.
Bujo, when on the day of the case, when he was freed, or not freed, when it was when mistrial was announced, he trended. So perhaps if Bujo the Bantan died, it would have that kind of impact as well to as many people because he's a topical figure. But
But I think
as far as legendary status,
right.
I'm not sure if we have a crop of artists out now currently doing the work who we can consider as legends right now.
Well, not even
I
not
don't think
well,
so.
not even legend, but even potential future legend. Because I wouldn't consider Buju a legend. But if someone said he was working his way to that status, I would not disagree with them. But
Yeah, I agree too.
the
I
question,
agree. I don't think so. I mean, and there are others, because at the same time, what it is to become a legend or become that type of superior, well loved, well known, well established artist. Is that it's not just the artists themselves. It's a whole collective of management, the production that the artist get, the type of tours that the artist has done, the way the artist is packaged and positioned, that makes him special in the hearts and minds of people all over the world.
right?
So it's not just the boy. We have some artists who have some bad song, also, but the way how they were placed and the way how they were put forward, or the stuff that they've done in their more recent times, kind of take them out of that status and them have to work to rebuild it. And one of the examples for that to me is Sizzla.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because Sizzla was well on his way, in my opinion, to be a legend in the dance, in the music, in the reggae music, in Jamaican music. Whereas now it could be argued that him do have a chance again, which I wouldn't say. I think him still have a good chance if all the things come in place and if he does.
But
people around him do what they're supposed to do.
he left off the legendary part.
Yeah.
He left off the legendary part. You can't just put it as that. And I think people still kind of holding their breath, hoping that he will come back.
Because people remember the album that he did for Bobby and Fatty, those early albums, and hear it, and it was like, truth be told, I don't know if Bob Marley, even at that particular point of Bob's career, he was doing that caliber of material.
Right.
So people are like, Sizzla can only go up from there. But
unfortunately,
so
he proved them wrong. Well, I mean, yeah, Bob was working hard, but Bob never really got the recognition that he sought in Jamaica. He had to go abroad to get to really get the recognition that he sought.
Imagine if Sizzla was Bob with Chris Blackwell, meaning he had the recognition in Jamaica, and there was a Chris Blackwell or a structure behind him that was carrying this Jamaican musician internationally at the same time.
And you would have to also say, and Sizzla was willing to be disciplined and go to where he wanted to go, also.
Right, and not do a certain type of material and record a certain type of material and put in the work which it took, which might not have paid that much at the time, because when I don't know how many reggae artists were willing to travel Babylon, but are currently willing to travel Babylon by bus for little or no money to go out there and tour just to make sure you stamp your name that you achieve that type of recognition worldwide. So 20, 30 years after you've long gone, your family and descendants are all comfortable based off of the work you put in. 40 years before.
That's a very important point. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, you're on Eat One Year, Jamaican MRI, and on the phone I have Dylan Powe from Jamaica. He's a former A&R from Big Beat Atlantic Records. He was a radio host on WLIB, and he's currently a producer and a promoter out of Jamaica. You know that PassaPassa shot sell off mad. He's one of the persons that's primarily responsible for that, and I see he's getting a lot of press. I actually have a copy of a Spin magazine for, is it November? For October.
I don't know. We don't get those magazines.
You don't get those magazines in Jamaica.
No, we don't really get them.
And you were telling how you were talking about how PassaPassa started, and you said it was after the massacre in 2001. The police invaded Tivoli, and they killed over 25 people at the time.
28, yes.
And the people were very depressed, and so you started bringing out the sound from outside of Miles Enterprise. And
I was actually in New York at the time. At that point, I was on radio, but the sound system Swash is a venture between myself and O'Neill Miles, my younger cousin. And the place where it is held is a family business place that has been in existence since the 1940s.
Right.